folks, the other day, WFAA Channel 8 out of Dallas reported that Pastor Robert Morris, who leads the Gateway Church in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they around 100,000 some odd people every weekend convene there. They reported that he expressed a moral failing years ago that he said he told the church elders about, and that they dealt with him, and how he sat out, and it was all this other little stuff that they had announced. Well, guess what? He's been getting it. First of all, he described it as a young woman. She wasn't a young woman. She was 12 years old. Well, since that story was broken, all hell is broken loose. About 48 hours later, Morris is out. This is the same Morris who you saw that video right there, sitting right next to Donald Trump. He was one of the folks who was a supporter of Trump and a spiritual advisor, if you will, to him. And so this is the statement from the Board of Elders of Gateway Church regarding the resignation of Robert Morris. Today, June 18th, the Board of Elders of Gateway Church accepted the resignation of Robert Morris, the senior pastor. In addition, the board has retained the law firm of Haynes and Boone LLP to conduct an independent, thorough, and professional review of the report of past abuse to ensure we have a complete understanding of the events from 1982 to 1987. Regretfully, prior to Friday, June 14th, the elders did not have all of the facts of the inappropriate relationship between Morris and the victim, including her age at the time and the length of the abuse. The elder's prior understanding was that Morris's extramarital relationship, which he had discussed many times throughout his ministry, was with a, quote, young lady, unquote, and not abuse of a 12-year-old child. Even though it occurred many years before Gateway was established, as leaders of the church, we regret that we did not have the information that we now have. We are heartbroken and appalled by what has come to light over the past few days, and we express our deep sympathy to the victim and her family. For the sake of the victim, we're thankful this situation has been exposed. We know many have been affected by this. We understand that you are hurting, and we are very sorry. It is our prayer that in time, healing for all those affected can occur. So what you have here, Candace, is a church playing Cover Your Ass. He stood out there and talked about what they did and how they sat him down and how he was away for 2 years. It was actually like a month. And they excused it. He was 21 years old. He did not have sexual intercourse, he did not have sexual intercourse with this woman when she was 12. The woman now, she went public, told a story to WFAA, has just hired an attorney as well. But she talked about how this took place, him kissing and groping her over several years. And it was crazy to watch some of these people literally offer defenses of him. It was insane. In fact, this woman here is the founder of a church in Weatherford, Texas. And this is what Barbara Phillips Littlepage said. And if you go to that church, you need to be running like crazy. She said, I want people to not judge Robert Morris because of a mistake he made over 30 years ago. Some young girls at 12 years old are very beautiful and sexy. They don't understand how men are made, and young men don't understand their actions are used by the devil to ruin a future God has for them. Other godly men have been distracted by Satan. That's why older men need to mentor young men. Young men don't realize how Satan will try to destroy their futures with their families and ministries. Candace, Robert Morris was 21 years old. The woman today at that time was 12. She was a girl. She wasn't even a teenager. She was a 12-year-old girl.
And notice how they tried to frame it as an extramarital relationship.
Yeah.
It was a girl This was a girl. I mean, I can hardly get through the sentence or the segment. This is a girl who really had no idea even who she was. And here he is, and here the church is, and here you've read this statement from someone in the church that they're trying to make it seem like it was pretty much her fault.
He actually called it, Candace, inappropriate and a moral failure.
And by the way, some of the statements as they've been describing how it happened, they made it seem like it was one time. Well, one time is enough. And besides that, this was over years. This was over years. You know, you think about this pastor, you think about Tony Evans, you think about, you know, the fact that Tony Evans said, listen, I haven't committed a crime. Here, a crime was committed. This man is a pedophile at 12 years. He groomed this young woman, 12 years old to 16 years old. She hadn't even attended a junior prom yet. And she's, you know, sleeping with this pastor, or, you know, no sexual contact. We got the groping and kissing, but they didn't have intercourse. But that was a grooming process. Lord only knows why he stopped. Lord only knows, you know, what really happened inside of that, where it all ended. And he is going to have a lot of people questioning him, and it won't just be from the church. It's going to be from the authorities, Roland.
Well, and see what really happened, what really just how this thing just took off, Larry, you started seeing churches tied to them. And this is a very prominent right-wing church. They are aligned with many social conservatives. And so you have a lot of churches that are underneath their umbrella where they act as overseer. In fact, this church in Fort Worth, again, right-wing church, Mercy Culture, they released their own statement. They say Morris never disclosed to them the age of the girl that he abused. And so you see their statement where they lay out these various thoughts. And so here's what was happening. The avalanche was coming. You were seeing church after church. You were about to see mass resignations. And so I don't know how in the hell he thought he could just get away with, oh, it was an inappropriate moral failure. Dude, you were 21 years old and you were feeling up on and you were kissing. You were sexually assaulting a 12-year-old girl over a period of years.
He's a predator, Roland. Let's call it for what it is. This is a part of a larger conversation that's connected to our previous conversation about the kind of behaviors based on ideology that folks seem to turn a blind eye to. Let's also make sure that we make a connection. We saw for years, found out the last several years, we saw that the Catholic Church, and there were, thousands of children worldwide that were sexually abused. And so this is a part of we have a larger conversation in our society about particularly protecting children, particularly from young girls, from individuals who are predators. The other point I want to make, Roland, is you show that side by side with the former president of the United States is that predators, as we know in the wild, travel in packs. And so we need to make sure, Americans need to make sure that you understand exactly what's happening here in the homes and various churches and these various other places at times when individuals who assert to be religious leaders and believe in the Bible. This is not behavior consistent with the Bible. This is illegal behavior by predators who once again are traveling in packs and are often using ideology to mask their behavior.
You cannot convince me, Joy, that this was a one-time thing.
Correct.
Trust me, I think these folks are bracing for more women to now come forward.
That's right. Or current girls. I assure you it's not a one-time thing. It's never a one-time thing. And Larry is right. They travel in packs. So I'm willing to bet there were people that not only assisted, aided, and abetted this story, because I promise you, someone knew the age of the girl. Someone did. This is a time where people use the Google and they understand. There were whispers. There are always whispers. And then I bet there are those who were doing the same thing and they covered for each other. That is what happens every time. And so, I think it's a reminder that when people say they care about children and they care about life, it's not the words that count. It's what happens when it's someone that you respect, that you love, that's your leader. Do you call them out? Do you say no to sexual harassment when it's your brother, when it's your husband, when it's your father, when it's your friend, when it's your pastor? Do you say no to sexual abuse when it's someone in a position of authority that you care about, that you had faith in? That's when we know, does the person care about children? Do they care about the life of people who are young and vulnerable, which is what they tell us when they strip us of our reproductive freedoms, that's what they're caring for? They don't care for it. It's a lie. It's a lie. The same lie that we know has happened in the Catholic Church, frankly, in the Baptist Church, frankly, everywhere where you have powerful people who are allowed to abuse the less powerful. So we'll learn more about this. Their lawyers are in for a long slog.
Now, and so I'm going to play this video here, y'all, because, 2014 sermon, this tweet says, don't go to it yet, says, in 2014 sermon, Robert Morris frames his, quote, sexual immorality, unquote, as occurring when he was a teenager and before he was ever saved. Mind you, the girl was 12. He was in his 20s, was married, and was also a minister. That's a whole lot going on. Listen to this.
I was very sexually immoral as a teenager. And it started early in my life, and it was very easy for me. I learned to lie and manipulate. Because I also had rejection, I didn't want to be rejected. So I looked for the girls that would be the most susceptible. And I learned how to spot this in girls. I looked for girls that did not have a good relationship with their father. I learned to spot that. I looked for girls that were insecure. And I don't know, now I look back on this, I can tell I did it. It wasn't like a plan that I had, but I could spot this. And I asked the Lord after I got saved, God, what was the root? Why? They said I was blessed. I know I wasn't blessed, I was cursed. Multiple affairs. And I don't understand this, God. And so what was the root? What was the open door in my life? I was very sexually immoral.
So, so here's the deal. This is the interesting part here, Candace. You hit on it earlier. He tried to frame this as, I was a teenager, they were teenagers, oh, I had affairs. No, dude, you were a grown-ass man messing with a 12-year-old. And what you just heard him say is literally the Predator playbook.
Yeah, he told us his plan. And you're right. That's what they do. They groom young women, and they also look for the signs, as he said, the weak relationship with the father, somebody who's insecure. And he was in a position of power so that these young women would look up to them. And he thought that by saying this, and I don't know when this was recorded, but he felt in his heart, that absolves me. I've confessed my sins, but the sins that he was confessing, they were made up of lies. So he confessed nothing that we knew about at that time. The real deal is what we know about today. But there's more, because that's what people in positions of power do. You don't just stop at one. He had a whole flock of young women and men, I'm just saying that because we don't know the story, at his disposal. And that's how they function. It's never just one. Not after all those years. He might have had maybe her, but there was somebody after her, or there was somebody at the same time.
That.
What's that?
I promise you that. Absolutely. There was someone after her. Mm-hmm.
That's right. We are going to hear so much more about this. This is only the beginning. He's moving money from bank accounts right now.
She said the abuse took place from December 1982 through March 1987. So Larry, because this is what many of his supporters have said. How do you deal with grace and forgiveness? How do you deal with that? And I totally understand that. Let me be perfectly clear. I understand a person does actions when they are saved. I'm sorry, before they were saved. I understand all of those different things. Here's why I think this is different. This is not a question of grace and mercy and someone made a mistake. He purposely lied and concealed the truth about what he did, the age of the young girl, and he used language that would make somebody think, oh, he cheated on his wife with another adult. That's what he made it sound like. She wasn't 18, she wasn't 17, she was 12. And so he knew what he was doing. And so that to me also I think is critically important because of the language that he used. So at no point did he say, folks, I was 21 years old and I was sexually molesting a 12-year-old. Never said that, Larry.
Never.
No, he never said that. And listen, there's a lot to unpack here. And so I think one of the things that is, you're right, Roland, is the message he delivered was a lie. And he's using it essentially, look, we know it's church, but he's using it as marketing to kind of talk about who he was before he said he was saved and who he was he said since then and reflect on his sins. And we know pastors and many churches and different religions do this all the time. But this is really part of what I said about her earlier calling a predator. And then you played this video to prove my point. The other really important point about this issue is, and I hope this happens, is people who are victims of this kind of a sexual assault are often not, obviously the young lady he victimized, but those who have family, he has family members. I would strongly suggest that those individuals have conversations with individuals who are children and adults now. Because often when this happens, it is someone who is close to you. And so once again, he's a predator. He hasn't just been preying on this young lady, but there are possibly other individuals closer to his circle who had been victimized at some point. And so we need to hold him responsible. I don't know what the statute of limitation is, et cetera. But once again, predators move in packs. And as my colleagues noted, there were absolutely people who knew about this. They always know. You always hear these rumors, not necessarily these kind of rumors, but these kind of rumors they don't stay within a circle of just like 2 or 3 people. There are a number of people who see something that may be inappropriate happen, and they often turn a blind eye. And that's why, as a society, we have to have a larger conversation about how we protect children, particularly young girls, from predators like this man.
Can I just add, forgiveness is important.
Joy, go ahead.
But you actually have to ask for forgiveness too. And when you're lying and trying to minimize what you did, you're not asking for forgiveness. And you also have to seek forgiveness from the person that you harmed. From the person that you harmed. So, the question is, did he say anything to the young woman in her family? Did he try to make amends with her? I guarantee the answer is no. No. These are the things that are the hallmarks of people who are truly remorseful. Are they seeking to get the counseling that they need? Not being saved. I'm talking about professional help, because anyone who's ever done defense work, criminal justice work knows that sexual predators, sexual mishaps or inappropriate behavior are some of the hardest to address because they are so deep-seated. So this is not like you robbed from a 5 and dime or something like that. That's not what this is. This is someone who at 21, and in the 80s when 21 meant something, 21 feels younger now than it did 20, 25, 30 years ago. So this guy's a predator.
Hell no, 21. I don't give a damn what decade it is.
Absolutely.
21 is 21 and 12 is 12. The woman's name is Cindy Clemshire. She told her story to WFAA TV out of Dallas. Here is some of that conversation.
Pastor of one of DFW's largest churches is responding to allegations that he molested a 12-year-old in the 1980s. Robert Morris, who preaches at Gateway Church in Southlake, admits he engaged in inappropriate sexual behavior, but the pastor says he was transparent, sought forgiveness and counseling before returning to the pulpit. Tonight, Matt Houston spoke to the accuser for the very first time.
Cindy Clemishire read from Genesis Sunday.
As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today.
That's the 54-year-old's prayer, that her story would bring about some good. She accuses Gateway Church pastor Robert Morris of molesting her from 1982 to 1987. The first time, she says, she was 12. Morris, a family friend, was in his early 20s, already married, already preaching.
The story is gut-wrenching when I read it on paper, and I've been sharing for years. So it just happens to be God's time, I think, for it to come to light.
In a statement, Morris admits to inappropriate sexual behavior with a young lady, though he did not reference her age. It was kissing and petting, he said, and not intercourse, but it was wrong. In 1987, Clemishire says she told a family friend who told her to tell her parents.
He didn't come forward and confess. He was turned in. And when someone's turned in, what are they sorry for? Are they sorry because they got caught, or are they truly repentant of what they did?
That's why she takes issue with Gateway Church elders who say Morris followed proper biblical steps and a lengthy restoration process. She says her family forgave Morris, but never gave him their blessing to preach again. Morris claims they did.
I think that leaders can get caught up in feeling like it's our responsibility to protect God, and it's not. Their responsibility is to protect the people.
Gateway Church elders say since the resolution of this 35-year-old matter, there have been no other moral failures. Pastor Robert has walked in purity and has placed accountability measures and people in his life. The matter's been properly disclosed to church leadership.
That's Old Testament verse. Let me show you New Testament verse.
Morris did not preach Saturday. He'd already announced plans to turn over church leadership to his son next spring, though he said he would continue preaching some. In Tarrant County, I'm Matt Houston.
Well, bottom line here, she gave an interview with the NBC News where she said that one time he invited her to his room where he instructed her to lie on her back. He then touched her breasts and felt under her panties. And this happened several times over a 4.5-year period. And so he lied. And so that was when they dropped the story on Sunday. And now you see that the church elder statement a couple of days later, a lot different. Candace, from a legal standpoint, she's hired an attorney. What do you see here? Because this took place, 30-some years ago.
She might feel defamed in some way, I will say that, because he made it seem like it was an extramarital affair with a young woman, when really he was lying by omission, when we know that he was really a pedophile, that he's a predator. So I think that that's one thing when we're talking about defaming someone, and whatever he's saying about her behind closed doors, none of that has come into fruition. I'm not sure about the laws in terms of the statutes of limitation or really what she has signed. I don't know if she's received any money. It wasn't mentioned in there, but maybe there was an NDA. I think there's a lot of information that we just happen not to know about, but definitely some legal course of action. And I would say this, that if I were she, I would say, you know what? I don't want the father preaching, nor do I want it to be passed down to the son. It's still on the family. We need to take that whole thing away. We need to find somebody else outside of his family to run this church. Otherwise, it's just like him being at the helm if his son is going to take over that church.
Yeah, somebody's killing poor people, and it's going on. Yeah.
When COVID happened, poor people were dying at a rate already of 800 people a day. Before COVID, if you went to a funeral every single day, it would take you 600 years to attend all the funerals of the people who will die from the ravages of policy violence, poverty, and low wages in America in just 1 year. It would take you 2 years and 19 days to go to all of the funerals of the people that will die today, and oftentimes silence. Nobody talks about this political genocide, But we are determined today to remember their death and be a resurrection of voting power and voice power like never before.
Economic justice and saving this democracy are deeply connected. We, as a nation, must listen to the demands of the poor, who are pushing and will continue to push political candidates and elected leaders to lift from the bottom so that everybody can rise.
Take back the money. Take back the money. Take back the money. Take back the money.
We are the poor, the marginalized, and the underpaid. And we are taking one step forward to say that everybody has a right to live.
Poverty is not the fault of those who are impoverished. It is caused by those who make the policy.
There are over 135 million poor and low-wage, low-income people in this nation.
The biggest block of potential voters by far is low-income, low-wage voters.
I can't afford medicine. Sometimes I have to skip because of the cost.
The farm worker community is tired of the violence imposed upon us by greed, exclusion, and denial of basic human rights.
Those folk that represented by that casket, poor and low-wage workers who are the most moral people in this country because they go to work every day believing, even though going to work is hazardous to their health.
I'm tired of working 70 to 80 hours a week and still not have money for the necessity of bills. I'm tired of getting sick and not being able to go see the doctor. Having to make a choice to pay between rent or the light bill or food or clothes.
You cannot claim to care about families and a culture of life and then do everything in your power to rob people of equal access to resources and to force them to live in poverty.
Leadership of both parties had waged war on poor people and low-wage workers.
And this government has treated people experiencing poverty, including their military families, with disdainful, deliberate, malicious neglect.
So the truth is that my son died from poverty.
We refuse to accept poverty as the fourth leading cause of death.
The fourth leading cause of death in this, the richest country in the world.
We march today for our children and the generations to come.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
We will voice our demands and register our vote.
When we stand up and when we stand together, things change.
There is the electorate that is, and then there is the electorate that should be.
34 million eligible poor and low-income voters did not vote in 2016. If just 20% of those voters in swing state were mobilized around an agenda, they could change the political outcome of every election. So we're launching the most massive voter mobilization and turnout campaign in history of poor and low-wage voters, allies, and religious leaders.
People are dying, but we know it doesn't have to be this way. And so we are calling on everyone to join us in this Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival.
We are here, we will be seen, we will be heard, and our power will be felt. We don't need to be an insurrection. We are a resurrection that will be felt across this country. Are you ready? 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 We are a resurrection, and we are ready. And